Greetings. Welcome to SW's Information Station, where we try to give you some information about different topics. Today's topic is what is an annotated bibliography? My English 112 class has to do annotated bibliographies. I have seen other classes that required annotated bibliographies. A friend of mine in graduate school had to do an annotated bibliography that was 55 sources, and her paper was 55 pages long. If yours is that long for my English 112 class, you're doing it wrong. It's not that long. It's definitely not that long. So, we're going to try to go through and explain a little bit about annotated bibliographies. And I made up this wonderful PowerPoint to help us with the video. All right. So, what is an annotated bibliography? This may sound very simple, but what is it? These are words. What do these words mean? So, first of all, whenever you get an assignment that you don't understand, there is keywords, okay? Look for those keywords, especially in the title of the assignment or listed on the assignment sheet so you can get a better understanding of the assignment type. The type we're talking about today is the annotated bibliography, which sounds like we just started talking in another language, but we really need to look up these words to figure out what is needed with the assignment. And once we look up the words, we figure it out. So the word annotated, it just means to make notes on something. If you annotate your textbook, you're putting notes in the margins so that you can easily find the information or see what your thoughts are on that subject in the book. If you, so when you we can see from this one word that we will be making notes about something. Okay, so annotated looks scary. All it means is I made a note on this. Okay. However, beware that most teachers do annotated bibliographies differently. So the notes, the annotated part, can be anywhere from being just a couple of sentences to some teachers requiring it to be very detailed. Okay. So you need to make sure to follow the examples and instruction sheets to see what notes are needed. I'm not going to go over my actual instruction sheet and kind of leaving this a little more open. So if you're my students, make sure to look at the information sheet because there is examples there of how exactly to do the annotated bibliography notes. So bibliography, it means a complete or selective list of works compiled upon some common principle, such as authorship, subject, place of publication, or printer. Most of the time, you'll see subject ones that are about a particular subject, but it's a list of works. If you were to only have one citation on it, it would be a citation in a format that points the reader to the original source. In MLA format, we call this list of citations a works cited page. In APA format, we call it a reference page, but it is the same thing. It's a bibliography list. So a bibliography list, it sounds terrible, but it's very simple. It's just a list of where to get the sources from. Now, what does the annotated bibliography do? The annotated bibliography is actually a great tool. It'll help you find, narrow down, and cite sources about your topic before you get into writing the paper. It can also help you see what sources would be most helpful toward your paper or help you find one of those sources again to pull more information from for another quote in your paper. Or maybe if you make a larger annotated bibliography than the minimum required, you might be able to go, oh, this source isn't very helpful, but this source that I thought wasn't going to be helpful is actually more helpful than I thought, and I'll pull a quote from that one. So an annotated bibliography is really helpful. Um, why do it? It's required. No. Many times students are taught to start with writing the paper instead of the sources. The teachers will ask for a thesis statement. Give me a thesis statement. One sentence statement about what your paper might be about. And then they tell you to build the introductory paragraph, which is the first paragraph of your paper. The thesis statement is the last sentence of the introduction paragraph. And so that's what they have you build first. That should be all your opinion. We've not even gotten into sources yet. And then they move on to writing the rest of the paper. Well, I did that in college for my first paper. And I then had to go back and rewrite the thesis statement and the introductory paragraph because not only did my opinion of the paper change once I found sources, but it also changed the whole layout of everything I was talking about because I couldn't find the sources I thought existed. Okay. And so I ended up having to rewrite the entire paper. To me, this is counterproductive. Okay. This technique not only helps you with writing resource um, research papers, but it really helps you figure out what you're doing with those sources. Okay. Um, it's kind of like having a shopping list. You don't write down every single detail of, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to go to aisle 14 and I'm going to go to the third section of that aisle. I'm going to look on the bottom shelf and I'm going to pick up the third can from the left. You don't write things like this, okay? This is notes. It's just notes. So it's like a shopping list. I need um a 2x4. I don't know. A bag of flour. Okay? I need a bag of flour. Well, I put down flour. I don't put down where I find it in the store because I've been there before. Okay? But this technique, the writing it starting with the thesis statement, does not help with research papers because it doesn't focus on the sources. With research papers, we're focusing on the sources. Okay. Um, and so this technique, I think, using an annotated bibliography first will help you in the long run of writing papers because then you have the source information all there together for you. So where do you start when you're writing an annotated bibliography? First thing, topic. What's the topic or the reason you're trying to make this annotated bibliography? That's the thing that will guide you into what keywords you use. Let's say you want a topic of, I believe for my class, a lot of times one of the papers we do is what is your major? Or what kind of job are you looking for? And do you think that job will work for you? Well, where would I find something? I want to be a carpenter. Okay, so how do I find sources about being a carpenter or getting into carpentry or building houses? Okay, so what do one of the things you need to sit down and think about is what is the topic restrictions and what exactly am I going to be using this annotated bibliography for? Um, if you're making an annotated bibliography showing a specific author's work, like my friend in graduate school, then you would need more specific notes or annotations about each source. If you're making an annotated bibliography to show which sources you're going to use for a specific topic and then write a paper afterward, the teacher may not require such specific notes. So be sure you check your assignment sheets. After you've figured out the topic, you can narrow down the keywords, other words, search phrases. You know, think about Google. Google does it, we've trained Google to search like we talk. Google, how do I find this? Then it finds you the answer. But library databases don't search like that. They search under words or phrases. Okay. So, Google, how do I fix the sink? Okay. In a library database, you would have to look for fix a sink or fixing or repairs or something like that. Okay. So, those are the keywords. But you're usually using scholarly sources, and a library database is a really good place to find sources. But again, look at the requirements for the assignment. Try to make your topic as specific as you can so that you can go into detail about the topic in the space needed. Usually, teachers require a certain number of sources because they knew it would take an average student that many sources to complete a paper of the length they have in mind. And so, go over the minimum number. Okay, find more sources than you need is my tip for the day. Okay, so now you've found a source. One of the main components of the bibliography part is the citing. Okay, citing it. So check your assignment details again to see whether you are required to use APA or MLA format. For my 112 class, we're using APA currently, but that may change. Mostly library databases will give you a cite button that gives you an approximate citation, but be sure to check it against your textbook because it's not always accurate. Okay. But one thing I see a lot of students mess up on is mixing formats. Make sure you stay consistent with your sources citation format, or you may run into deductions you didn't plan on. Okay. I've had a lot of students that they're trying to cite an APA and they put a bunch of MLA citations, or they put an MLA citation in the middle of a bunch of APA citations. And it's like, this is not correct. This isn't what I asked for. So make sure you are copying MLA and APA, and we will go over that in a minute. So make sure when you're using the cite button or trying to cite a source that you stay with the format you are required to use for the assignment. Now I'm going to show you some really very visual things of how to tell the difference between citing an APA and MLA. So APA format is visually different from MLA because they move the date in parenthetical marks, the roundy things, into the second position of your citation, which is right here. I don't know if you can see the mouse, but yes, right there. 2014 is in parenthetical marks. Okay, we have the author first, and it's usually initializing the first name, and then we have the date. Okay, now when we go over to MLA format does not have the date there. Okay, you notice we have the first name spelled out, but we have no date here. The date has moved way down here and is not in parenthetical marks except for certain cases, but it's not here. Okay, MLA puts quotation marks around the article title or the web page title. APA doesn't. Okay, so this is something that it's just, if you've got the parenthetical marks right next to it, boom, you've got APA. If you've got quotation marks, boom, you've got MLA. Okay, so that's a very visual thing to let you know that yes, this citation I am copying is MLA. Yes, this citation I'm copying is APA. Okay, and sometimes they'll just come up with a dialog box when you hit that cite button that says, hey, cite your source, and it'll be on AMA, Chicago, some other formatting, and you have to choose from a drop down list or click on something to get the correct citation. So just be aware of that. Now for the notes. Once we have the citation, we then put the notes as it shows in the examples or the instructions your teacher gives you. For my class, I prefer to have the citation and then the notes for that source directly under that citation. That way I can tell it belongs together. Make sure you follow the examples your teacher shows, and to do the same thing for each source you list on the annotated bibliography. My students have examples on the information sheet for the assignment. You can copy and paste that example and use it in your paper. Just copy it for each source you're going to use, replace the information there, and boom, you've got it. So here, I'll give you a little example. Here is a citation in hanging format. You can notice this is APA format because it's got the date right here. So I have my citation, then I have my notes. This source goes over the blah, 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 blah. This source is credible because blah, 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 blah. I would use this source to blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's basically what I'm asking for in this class, but definitely look at the examples in the assignment sheet. So make sure that you cite every source you've used for this annotated bibliography, and that you reach the minimum requirement of sources needed for your annotated bibliography, whether it's 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 55, whatever the number is. Make sure you hit that minimum requirement number. Make sure that you use the format requested by your teacher, and don't mix your formats. Make sure you put annotations or notes on every source listed, and double check that your sources are going to be helpful for the reason you are doing this, okay? Don't just throw a bunch of sources on there and go, oh, I must be done because I got to 6, and then have to go back and do a whole bunch more that you weren't planning on. Places you can use an annotated bibliography. Sometimes your teacher may want you to know what sources say about a particular topic without having to write a full paper. So in other words, you only do the annotated bibliography. And sometimes you may write a full paper using those same sources. For my class, I try to double up and use both, where you will do the annotated bibliography and then write a full paper using those same sources, which is why I grade the annotated bibliography, and then you can use those graded comments for those citations on the main paper. Sometimes, however, when you get into the real world, you may need to give your boss a list of places they can find certain things, like, hey, I need a report on where to get, let's say, a new chair, office chairs. I'm looking for office chairs for the office. Can you get me a list of places to get office chairs? So you find that Office Depot has them. You find that Staples has them, Walmart has them, and you find all these places that have them, but you need to have not only the place, but little helpful notes of what each place can do for that person. Okay, so Walmart's got them cheap, but they look not so good. Uh, this place has got it really good looking ones, but they're a little more expensive. This place, it'll take forever to order them, but that time we may save time, more money, etc. Little helpful notes. So that's typically an annotated bibliography as well. However, it is extremely helpful for these research papers. The annotated bibliography is helpful for every research paper you write, even if you do it shorthand, which is little notes, okay? It gives you a list of sources that you've found so that you do not have to research for a source that you've already found that you think you've read at some point during the process. It gives you notes on what each source is talking about so you can re-find that source again. And it can be saved for future papers. Let's say 2 semesters from now, you got a paper on the exact same topic. Well, if you save that list of sources, guess what? You can use that source list again because those sources will be helpful. But you don't have to research for that source again. As a student, I used an annotated bibliography for most of the papers I've written. Not an official one, not like the ones we are going over, but I just had something simple like a link, but then I put notes about that link. Okay, and I found that when I during the writing process, I would, start writing and oh wait, this is a this paragraph isn't quite going the way I thought it was, going toward the quote that I thought it was going toward. Wait a minute, I remember reading something about that. Hmm, let me go back to my source list and oh, there it is, right there. I made a note because that's what this source is about. And I go back to that original source, pull the quote I needed, and keep writing. Okay, so this technique saves a lot of time refinding sources. Even ones you don't think you're going to use, put them on the list because it really does help save time. You don't want to have to read a bunch of stuff and then, oh, wait, I read something about that. And then, oh, I don't remember where it is. That's kind of the number one thing that a lot of students have had problems with in writing papers. They'd find great sources that they loved, but they couldn't find it again. A citation, let's scroll back up to citations. A citation gives you enough information to tell you where to find that source. And even if it's not available at, let's say it's a web source, if it's not available at the same link again, guess what? You can take that article title, that author, and start looking for it online, and you might find the same information from a different source, but you've already got who you're looking for. Okay, so that's why an annotated bibliography is larger than a list of links. It's not just a list of links. Okay, it is a list that helps you direct yourself back to the original source and the teacher or whoever else is reading it, and gives you notes of what that source is about. Okay, so hopefully this will help you figure out what you need to do for an annotated bibliography. Again, look at the assignment sheet, figure out what exactly you're needing to do, and hopefully you'll be able to ace that test. Have a great day.